Great to see the hall full tonight. You know, the organisers called this meeting at 24 hours notice, and I was, of course, very happy to accept the kind invitation to attend, as I know so was Jim. And of course, we've been chasing Sir Geoffrey Donaldson for 2 days, asking him to debate with us. He was good enough to stand on platforms with us. He was good enough to walk the streets side by side, not only with us, but with people such as yourselves, ordinary grassroots unionists and loyalists, and that's what I am. I'm a grassroots unionist and loyalist, and let me say this, I would much rather be standing here tonight with the people of Magashall than standing in the Houses of Parliament congratulating myself. And speaking of one of our great unionist leaders, welcome Jim Allister. And myself and Jim Allister, Jim's maybe wearing a wire. Myself and Jim Allister have been criticised repeatedly this week by Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, who calls us naysayers, and that's what he says about us. Let me remind him of this. I haven't changed. Jim Allister hasn't changed. The grassroots unionist and loyalist people haven't changed. What we said from those platforms, we kept our word. We haven't broke our word. So if Geoffrey Donaldson is embarrassed, is humiliated by what he has done, by the betrayal that he is engaged in, well, don't take it out on us, Geoffrey. And just before we move on, let me also welcome Jim Wells tonight, a former minister in the DUP who has seen the light, to put it that way, and is here tonight and has spoken against the And I should say this tonight is about the union. This is not about bashing the DUP, the UUP, or anybody. There's good people in the DUP, and I want to recognise them tonight. I want to recognise Sammy Wilson, Carla Lockhart, Paul Girvin, Ian Paisley, Nigel Dodds, Paul Thu, Joanne Bunting, Michelle McElveen. I want to recognise those people who did stand up, and today, to be fair, in the House of Commons, 4 DUP MPs took a stand. In fact, the only divergence we seen today was the 4 DUP MPs who are refusing to give in, sitting on one side, and the 4 surrendering, sitting on another, with the gap between them as big as the eye of sea. So, in January 2021, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson spoke to the BBC Spotlight, and he told them that the protocol was not a constitutional issue. He even went as far as saying that there were opportunities that we must all embrace. And it was only after grassroots unionist and loyalist pressure that all of a sudden a new Sir Geoffrey Donaldson emerged. One who copied our language, who spoke of the subjugation of the Acts of Union and of the Union Dismantling Protocol. We didn't change then, and we haven't changed now. When he asks, what did we, and when I say we, I mean every single person who campaigned, who protested, and who battled and continue to battle every single day, achieve? The answer is, we forced you to move, Geoffrey. You came to our position. And we shifted the minds of the unionist electorate. As protocol implementers, as those who built the posts, the DUP slumped to 13% in the polls. And it was only when they took a stand that their support began to rise once again. But now, having made fundamental promises and commitments, having marched side by side with people now labelled naysayers, Sir Geoffrey, it seems, has forsaken it all. He stands today in Parliament, the darling of the Northern Ireland office, Julian Smith, who of course smashed sovereignty with his dalliance with the violence-threatening Simon Coveney in NDNA, Chris Heaton-Harris, the Secretary of State who's tried to bully unionism, and of course the hard man of Brexit who melted like a snowman, Steve Baker, at the first whiff of ministerial office. And if he has his way, on Saturday, Sir Geoffrey will direct his MLAs to enthrone Sinn Féin, to meekly and subserviently go back to Stormont, summoned by Sinn Féin, and to be mocked and humiliated by Sinn Féin, the SDLP, and Alliance, who can now celebrate the achievement of the very thing which unionism said they could never have, power sharing and the protocol. The DUP MLAs, many of them who are good people, who do not believe in this and who are in an incredibly difficult situation will be forced into being protocol implementers, playing a full part in the operation of the very thing which we all agree dismantles the union as we know it. And one of those MLAs, whoever that may be, I don't know, will debase themselves and become the joint head of an administration alongside Sinn Féin. And they will have a legal duty to build border posts, to operate the border posts, and implement the ongoing subjugation of the Acts of Union. And turning to the deal, we are told that that subjugation is no more. We must pretend that the Supreme Court didn't say what it said. We must ignore all of those detailed judgments. We must ignore the former Attorney General of Northern Ireland, John Larkin. We must ignore the analysis set out in the Alistair case by Lord Justice Bernard McCluskey, the intellectual heavyweight of the judiciary in Northern Ireland. And we must instead confuse ourselves with a history lesson as to why the Acts of Union should be interpreted to mean something other than what it says. And at the end of that dizzy intellectual journey of deception, we must arrive at the point where we not only accept the subjugation of the Acts of Union, but in fact we now welcome it, and instead herald a new modern interpretation entirely divorced from what the words say. And we have come a long way from the words Sir Geoffrey spoke in Castledarg when he said, "Restore the Acts of Union, nothing less will do." His words, not mine. We are told that the Irish sea border has gone, but that's a lie. And don't take my word for it. Instead, listen to the most senior and experienced people in the DUP. Lord Nigel Dodds, Sammy Wilson, Willie McRae, and then other people such as Carla Lockhart, Ian Paisley, Paul Girvan, Michelle McIlveen, Paul Thew, Johnny Buckley. Those are just some of the people who have taken a stand, who say the Irish sea border still remains, and who want to continue to stand firm on the promises that the DUP made. Ladies and gentlemen, the Irish sea border remains firmly in place. That is the verdict not only of me, not only of Jim, not only of independent legal opinion, as you will see tomorrow, but of the DUP's most senior people themselves. And here is the test for the Unionist and Loyalist people. If Sir Geoffrey Donaldson cannot even convince Nigel Dodds, on what basis can he hope to credibly convince anybody else? And so the Irish sea border is in full force. There is zero checks and zero paperwork, the DUP claim. Tonight, at midnight then, I presume there'll be no more checks. The border control posts will be dismantled, and tomorrow everything will go back to the way it was before the protocol. But of course that's not what's going to happen. There's no reduction of checks at all in this thing. So let me be clear about that. Sir Geoffrey Donaldson says he has delivered zero checks. That is not true. Paragraph 98 of the command paper. There is an intention to work towards such an outcome, but no commitment, no legislation, no timeline, absolutely no legally binding requirement to do anything on the government. And I would say this, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson quite rightly walked out in 1998 on the basis that David Trimble had failed to secure legally binding commitments linking signatories to the deal to achieve certain outcomes. The same Geoffrey Donaldson now is asking the Unionist people to accept the government which he says can't be trusted, and that's why we must have devolution, that they will somehow deliver on their promise, just like they delivered or failed to deliver on all the other ones. And we hear then about this so-called Green Lane, but in order to even access this lane, you must apply for authorisation, permission to be allowed to trade within your own country. And who sets the criteria for the application for this permission? A joint committee of the United Kingdom and European Union. The European Union have an effective veto on who can even access the Green Lane because the joint committee sets the decision. What about that? In your own country, you have to ask for permission of the European Union to be allowed to make an application. And of course, just digest that for a minute. You must apply for authorisation to trade in your own country, and that's what the DUP tell us is a win. They say, and Jeffrey Donaldson said on Good Morning Ulster, and hold them to this, zero checks, we've already shown, paragraph 98 of the command paper, untrue. Zero customs paperwork. That is untrue. Still in force, Joint Committee Decision 01-2023, Article 9, Paragraph 2. In order to make an application for the so-called Green Lane, you must provide information for customs purposes. Two simple questions for Jeffrey Donaldson. Show me the legal text where Article 9.2 of the Joint Committee Decision is done away with. Show me the legal text whereby checks are directed to stop. And I'm going to tell you something, Jeffrey Donaldson won't be able to show you either of those two things. And so the default position is if you are by default faced with the full EU customs border, the so-called red lane, and with EU permission, you may be allowed to apply to access a green lane. So it's complete and utter nonsense to say that the Irish Sea border is gone. But if it has, presumably tonight, Jeffrey Donaldson, Gavin Robinson, and all of the rest of them will be up dismantling the border control posts. Because we are told the Irish Sea border has gone. Why then is there still, as Sammy Wilson said yesterday, EU-controlled border posts in our country? Ask Sir Jeffrey Donaldson and answer the question, Jeffrey. When are the border control posts coming down? Because you said the Irish Sea border has gone, so demonstrate how that is so for the people you wish to convince. And Gavin and Jeffrey tell us the Green Lane is gone. Well, I can defeat that assertion with one very, very simple point. If the Green Lane or the structure of it is gone, why do you have to apply for authorisation to access it? Because if there's nothing there, if the Green Lane is gone, why must you apply to access something which doesn't exist? It would be like turning up at an Orange Hall in a car park where there's no building. It doesn't make any sense. But of course, none of what the DUP have said on this, sections of the DUP have said on this deal makes any sense. So what they really mean is they've changed the name. And to give a simple analogy, it would be like me changing Jeffrey Donaldson's name in my mobile phone from Jeffrey Donaldson to Surrender Deal Donaldson, and then claiming I've deleted the number. And the central thing is, so too does EU law still apply in Northern Ireland. So Jeffrey claims in his latest bold claim he has broken dynamic alignment. He has not. More utter nonsense. The final say on whether EU law applies rests with international arbitration. It does not rest with the sovereign parliament. So even if the Stormont brake is pulled, the final say is with international arbitration. And you see, the Stormont brake is like a child's toy, in which the subservient DUP deputy of the protocol implementing administration will be sitting in the back seat with a pretend steering wheel like a child and with a pretend handbrake from Smith's Toys. And they will pull the brake like the child in the back, but like a child probably too naive to realise that the brake that they have isn't actually attached to anything. So all they can actually do is ask the driver, will they pull the brake? And even if the driver, in this analogy the government, can be trusted and do pull it, then we have to pull over to the roadside and we have to ask someone else, can we actually stop, or instead do we need to keep driving over the cliff edge of the Union? And who do we have to ask? The European Union. And if they don't agree, who decides? An international arbitration body, not the sovereign parliament. So we remain, as Jim concisely puts it, subject to laws we did not make and cannot change. And that was once the core issue. And that's not my words. Don't take my word for it. That's the words of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson in an interview with Tracy McGee of UTV in February 2023. Does Geoffrey think people forget? Does he think Tracy McGee has deleted the interview from UTV? EU law is the core issue which needs to be fixed. Geoffrey Donaldson's words, not my words. Geoffrey Donaldson tells us today that there's no issue with the continued application of EU law. Where did it all go wrong, Geoffrey? So that's another pledge gone. And finally, I just want to read something to you. And this is an extract from an authorised biography of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson. It says this: on the other hand, he could not possibly abandon his principles to support a policy which he believed to be out of step with the wishes of the majority of Unionists. Early the following week, Geoffrey received a letter from a well-wisher quoting a question from 1 Kings chapter 18 and verse 21 of the authorised version of the Bible. It was, "How long hold ye between two opinions?" Geoffrey Donaldson once knew what it was like to be holding firm to principles in the face of many others trying to shout him down. So every single unionist and loyalist now faces a choice. You implement the Irish Sea border for the sake of pragmatism, or you stand against the Irish Sea border as a matter of fundamental principle. I have made my choice, and I hope all in this hall will make the same one. So ladies and gentlemen, stand firm, don't give in, because if unionism give in now, we will look back and our children and our grandchildren will ask us, how did this happen? Did nobody fight? Did nobody stand up? Did everybody just go along quietly with this? And I repeat the point, there's more people here in Magashel tonight than turned out in the House of Commons to listen to Geoffrey and Gavin congratulating themselves.